Thank you and welcome to our Ad Hoc Pool Committee meeting on September 15th, 2020. The meeting's being conducted in accordance with the emergency directives from Governor Sisolak, beginning with 006 and modified by 016, 018, 021, 026, and 029. So the public is not present. We are video streaming the meeting. Public comment may have been submitted in advance, and we will also provide an opportunity for people to call in during the meeting. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and I do believe we have 2 members are not present. Is that correct?
We actually have 3 members that are currently not present, but 2 of them let us know that they want to be here. Okay,
and that's Mr. Adams.
Mr. Adams, to my knowledge, was to be in attendance.
Okay, Mr. Anderson and the third?
And, Sarah Carroll.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we'll begin with our initial public comment period. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda. Public comment period will allow for 5 minutes for each speaker. Anyone here wishing to speak in public comment? All right, we will then go ahead and open the phone line. Phone number is 702-589-9629. Anyone wishing to call in for public comment? And again, due to the time delay between when things happen here and when things are seen by the public, we'll give some time for folks to see it.
Public comment.
Yes, I have public comment.
Okay, state your name and give us your comment.
Yes, good afternoon, committee. For the record, Fred Volz. Speaking first to the second agenda item, while it's positive that city revenues are over $3 million better than projected in fiscal year 2020, we have yet to experience the full impact on the local economy of the virus effect. Revenues from our regional tourism industry are a fraction of what they were pre-March. Multiple conventions have been canceled, and occupancy rates at hotels are lucky to reach 50% on a given weekend and 25% during the week. Taking millions of dollars of public money needed for the long list of unfunded capital improvement projects around the city to spend on a swimming pool that is used by an average of 54 people per day hardly passes the cost-benefit test. The city thinks it will receive $19 million from the Regional Transportation Commission to fix streets in 2022. How does this compare to the drastic loss of farebox revenue and the elimination of routes and bus frequency by the RTC to conserve cash? Can Boulder City really count on this street repair money from the RTC? This financial contraction is just one example of the cascading effect on our state's economy from the continuing restrictions. Additionally, let's show some respect in spending priorities for our many limited income residents who are struggling and who could use a tax cut or utility rate cut rather than the finance director suggesting we can afford to spend frivolously on yet another underused public recreation facility. As for agenda item number 4, it gives one cause to pause that we would hire yet another consultant for repair of the existing pool. Public Works has been able to come up with a rough cost estimate for a new pool of some $33 million plus interest. Why can't Public Works do the same for a rebuild of the existing pool and save taxpayers this additional expense? We have had so many poor city consultant results recently, particularly the Stantec facility study, which gave us virtually no actionable information and didn't even do a comprehensive job of inventorying city buildings. Finally, regarding agenda item number 5, it is worth reiterating that the pool committee's responsibility is not just to figure out how to build a new pool or renovate the existing one. Instead, all alternatives should be pursued to provide this service in the future for the less than 1% of residents who use the existing swimming complex. Suggested at past meetings has been a public transit pool pass compact with the RTC, City of Henderson, for Boulder City residents and competitive swimmers to use their expansive pool complexes. No action has been taken. This approach could give Boulderites access to excellent swimming facilities for a fraction of the cost of building a new pool or renovating the existing one. Why hasn't Parks and Recreation investigated this possibility and reported back to the committee? Please add this obvious task as a future agenda item. Thank you, and I would ask that my comments be added verbatim to the record of the meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? The phone line is available. The phone number is 702-589-9629. Again, if you wish to make public comment during the ad hoc pool committee meeting, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Hearing no others, we'll close the public comment period and move to item number 1, approval of the minutes. Any questions or comments regarding the minutes? Anyone wish to make a motion for approval? Ms. Jeffries?
I make a motion we approve the minutes.
All right, and I'll second the motion. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, minutes are approved. We'll move now to item number 2, presentation of the revenue projections over the next 2 years. We have Mrs. Pelletier, the Finance Director.
Good afternoon. I've been asked to provide the update on the revenue for the city for the next 1 to 2 years and the impact, if any, to the Aquatic Center financing plan that we proposed back in January.
I got it.
Okay. I thought this graph said it quite nicely, and if I can just point out the different colors. There's a gray line that is the actual revenue that the city has received. And then there's an orange line, which was the revenue projections that we did back in May when we received some applied analysis estimates. They were doing the estimates for the state. So we used their estimates to provide our projections. So we downplayed all of our revenues. You can see that by the orange line. And since then, they've revised the estimates, and that's the green line. So they're projecting better than what they had done back in May. So what this means for us, is that the actual revenues for the year just ended on June 30 of this year were actually 1.2 million higher than our original budget. So we actually came in over our budget, and they were actually 3.1 million higher than the original projections from the COVID. And the new projections with the 2020, for the 2020 budget have also been updated, and that's increased the seat tax numbers by 3 million in the new year. So, make my notes here. Okay. So these updated revenue projections are still conservative, and they still don't include any new potential revenue sources that we could receive during the year. But the 2021, which is year ending June 30, 2021, our use of projected fund balance went from 6.6 million right now down to 3.5 million. So things were to the degree that we were going to have to dip into our fund balance by 6.5 million. That is now revised to 3.5 million as of right now. So we expect to get renewed estimates too as the year goes on and as they see actual data. So now that brings us to the actual pool plan that, I don't know if you recall, we presented a booklet back in January of a possible way of financing the pool. And I'm happy to report that really nothing has changed from that other than the timing, because we're not going to have the ballot questions on the ballot this coming November. That delays everything. And other than that, the plan is still a valid plan because it doesn't use city revenues and it's using other sources that haven't been impacted by COVID. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Ms. Jeffries?
I have a question on the fiscal 2020. Revenues were higher and than the original budget. Was that because of just more money or conservation on our part or not spending as much, or?
We ended up having an additional permit that was issued by for one of the solar companies, which was $1 million. And that made up most of that over budget amount.
Thank you.
And Member Reel, if you would like to, you can sit here if you have any questions for the microphone. Anyone else have questions or comments? It is good news that we do see the projections at least being increased on this. As I look at that graph that you have for the budget projections out to 2025, where those two projections start to come together, that's still roughly $2 million below what we had budgeted for this year before the virus hit.
Bring that one back up. Okay, one more. Okay, that one. So you're saying in 2025?
Right.
So we just projected, I believe it was like a 20% increase each year. So it's a conservative estimate.
This is from applied analysis, or this is something that you were looking at?
I believe we just did that as a very conservative way to just increase it gradually to get us to where we would be back to normal.
Okay.
So it could be better, could be worse.
Right. Well, and that's the question. If we had the crystal ball where we could see where it was going. Mm-hmm. Now, with the revenue sources that you had planned on, some of that money was from the sale of land, the Boulder Hills third stage or third phase. Is that correct?
No, I believe that's the land that has not been put for sale yet.
Right, and I think that's the third phase of that.
Okay, I didn't know it was called that.
And you had listed $7 million in seed money?
That was for the voter approval.
That was the
It was going to be a
bond?
ballot question. No, it was a ballot question for the voters. Seed money.
Okay,
From the Capital Improvement
Fund?
The voter-approved Capital Improvement Fund.
Okay,
Which currently has $9 million in it. and we'll probably have about 12 million in it by the end of the year. So,
And with the bond, you have a projection there of $1 million annually for debt service. Where was that anticipated to come from? The general fund or the capital improvement fund? Or?
no, that was also a ballot question, being able to use $1 million that would either be used for debt service or just to continue the savings plan.
And what's the origin of that money?
The voter approved.
I mean, just general fund revenues?
No,
or
it's the solar money that goes into there, the lease monies.
lease revenue?
Yep, in the voter approved fund.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, Dr. McNay?
Well, and I love the way you've laid this out. I loved it the first time. I still love it. With the years and the thermometer, the funding thermometer and all that. And I'm glad that we can still follow that path. I know that the ballot questions aren't going to happen. And I don't know if that's something the city council will decide on.
Well, it's too late. It's too late for the
Too late for
November
November, for sure. So is there an anticipated date, or is that more of a question for Kieran, of when the next election is and when the ballot questions might go out?
Well, you know, there's three possibilities for ballot questions. They can be done during a national election or a statewide election that we'll be having in November. A municipal election, the last one of which we will have next June, because the city will be moving to even year elections after that, or a special election can be called. So those are the three possibilities. And as noted, the period of time to get anything on the November ballot has passed.
And then I guess I'm really glad to see that, it was wonderful that we had the donation and that's earning interest, that
Yes, it is.
$1.3 million.
Not
donation.
much interest, because nothing's earning interest, but it's in there. It's having interest allocated each month.
Okay, because we definitely want to hang on to that. And
Yes.
I'm sure that, with all the budget issues, I keep thinking, oh no, would that potentially
It's in
get
its own separate account.
Okay, that sounds great. So really, nothing can be moved on until we get these ballot questions out to the public then, and to be able to follow the miles and the...
I believe some steps might be taken, but it'd be wiser to do the ballot question first.
On page 20 of the packet, the thermometer scale that Member McKay had just referred to, the excess revenue, that was general fund money or ending balance money, or?
It was excess revenues. So if any given year we have excess revenues, like this year was 1.3 million. So some of that could have been allocated. So that, that's the part where we're not saving, and that money is falling into and in the general fund unprotected. So it is able to, possibly be used for other things. But I guess that's the only caveat about the plan is it needs to be implemented, and things need to start happening in order to set the money aside, because then the money can be put in an account that is in an account that's not protected for anything.
With the adjusted estimates from applied analysis, what is now the revenue decrease that is being projected for the general fund over the remainder of this fiscal
That
year?
3.5 million
Okay.
that I mentioned, that would be the cash that the general fund would have to use.
And I believe the general fund revenues were projected at something like 36 million.
That might be a little high. I'm not sure exactly what the amount is.
It was a little over 35 million, it appears. So we're looking at least projections right now, roughly a 10% reduction in general fund revenues.
Use of fund balance. We would use the general fund revenues and general fund balance to pay the operating costs of the city.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. We'll move now to item number 3, presentation regarding capital improvement and maintenance projects. Mr. Luttrell.
Good afternoon, Mayor and committee members. Item number 3, I just wanted to highlight some of the maintenance projects that staff has been doing in-house, also some contracted work, and then some past and future CIP projects, just hitting some of the highlights. Ever since we were able to hire an in-house plumber that's on staff, they've been taking care of a number of different things. In addition to that, there's been some extensive replaster work done. There still needs to be a full replaster project done. We have done bits and pieces of it throughout the years. We also replaced the main building roof and the racquetball roof in the last 5 years. The main building was replaced in 2019. And then we also replaced the pool bubble back in 2013, and the air handler was replaced about a year later. Some of the CIP projects that we have completed, we got the conceptual design done by SH Architecture. That was for about $109,000. There was $200,000 budgeted, so there $91,000 rolled back into the general fund. There is also another aquatic and cultural center design work. That wouldn't be the full-blown design of the pool, but it'd be more extensive than just the conceptual design. That has been on hold. There hasn't been any money expensed towards that. We've also replaced the pool heater, but that was completed with the maintenance budget. No CIP funds were used for that. It was in the CIP. The roof repair replacement, as I stated above, we actually completed that work in-house, saved about $11,000 that rolled back into the CIP. And then you'll see the bottom 4 projects on that table. The first one has never been funded, the pool replaster, but it is on the CIP. It just is pushed out a couple years. And then the bottom 3 are actually on the CIP for this year, but they're on hold due to the reduced revenue from this virus. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's see, I was going to mention this is trivial, I suppose, when you list the members on your, maybe this was just done in-house, but David and I aren't on there. The former members are listed.
I noticed that about 10 minutes before the meeting. And didn't have
Did you
enough
notice
time.
that, David? So I'm not Judy Hoskins, and I don't think he's Matt DeTeresa. So I just
No.
thought for future reference, you
I
might.
apologize
and
for
both
that.
of your reports had
Yep.
that. Okay. Then the other, I'm not. So CIP is the capital improvement
Plan or capital
plan.
improvement
Because
projects.
then you did say capital improvement fund. That's the other part of that. So and then that's all on COVID hold.
Yep.
The ones that are from the voter approved one. And so, because I just want to clarify what those.
Yeah, right now we're only moving forward with critical or emergency type projects. We need to come to council, ask them for permission to move forward, just because we don't know where the revenue is going to be. So with each of these CIP projects, if it is something that's critical or emergency, we'll come ask council for permission to proceed, and then we'll get the project done.
Okay. I'm at the pool every day. I worry about it.
I understand.
It needs major medical help or whatever, plumbing help, whatever, like mechanical. Whatever.
Yep.
But I guess it's still hanging in there. I guess she would know. Let's see if I. Go ahead, Marty.
Well, I was just going to mention, you said that they put in a new cover over the pool in 2013, so that's 7 years ago. What's the average life of one of those covers?
Julie, do you know? I know Roger knows this right off the top of his head,
Well,
but
I think we try to stretch it out as much as possible.
Right.
I think the last one we had 20 years.
Oh, that long? Okay, well, the point being that, the earliest we could probably be even starting construction on a new pool would be 2022. And I just wondered how much do you have any predictions of how much it's going to cost us to maintain that pool, in the next 2 fiscal years?
And not off the top of my
Yeah,
head, I don't have
right.
those numbers, but I could definitely gather that for our next meeting.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Luttrell, a couple things that I noticed on here is the filtration system. That was one of the items that's been placed on hold right now. The recirculation, water intake. Those have to do with keeping the water clean. Is that a reasonable statement?
Yep, that's how I'd explain it. Julie or Cherie or Roger could probably explain it in a lot more detail, but that's how I understand it.
Okay, and do we know what the current status of that? I recall there was a discussion about the trench that there was some deterioration on the grates and the actual lining of the trench. Is that correct?
Yeah, we, in talking with Roger and Julie, we're trying to figure out a way to maybe slip line that because the trench where the water spills into is really falling apart. The best way for me to explain it is if you have an old pipe that's fallen apart, you can slip a new pipe through the inside of it. Well, I'm sure they can do it with a rectangular box, slip something through there and basically weld it with HPE.
Okay. And I saw something today that the bubble will be getting installed soon in the next several weeks.
I believe the 30th, is that right, Julie?
Something
Yeah.
like that. And there's some work that's anticipated while the pool is drained.
Yeah, the filtration pit, yeah, the filter pit.
Okay. If we were to look at this, as Member Reel had just said, that, realistically, if the decision's made to go forward with a new pool, this one's going to have to last till 2022. Are there any other things that are not on this list that you're aware of at this time might be needed in that period of time to keep the pool open?
Julie would be able to answer that better than me.
We are not anticipating any major ones other than the ones that we have already identified. But with this facility, you never know.
Yeah, it's 40 years old.
That's
so.
right.
And I was, that windstorm, what, that did to, I mean, it's a miracle, but it trashed it so badly, didn't it, Shirley? It was a nightmare. It was horrible. So prevent something.
But no damage.
Okay, thank God.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding this portion of the projects?
Well, when you were talking about, when you brought up how the filtration is for the safety or just, what's the term to use, for sanitary or hygienic or whatever we're doing these days. So is it safe? I mean, for the swimmers in there, nothing, it can be done to make it, it's perfectly safe that way?
It's safe,
Okay.
yes.
With the
So,
chlorine and the,
Chlorine sanitizes and.
Cherie, would you mind coming to the microphone?
I'll try to keep this just real short, but chlorine sanitizes the water, but water also has to be filtered. And we use a diatomaceous earth filtration system. So that filters out particles. And the type we have filters out to it, I think it's 0.4 microns. So not to be gross, but that can include hair and Band-Aids and, that kind of stuff. So there's a difference between filtration and sanitation.
because I just think people think that when they're in the pool, they're safe from the virus, that kind of thing. There's not going to be, that it's somehow protected. I don't know.
The science that I've read is that chlorine and UV rays are the best means to fight the virus.
Because especially now that the bubble's going to come on, you won't have the UV rays.
True.
You're just going to have the filtration, the chlorine, whatever.
Yeah, filtration doesn't have anything to do with sanitation,
Okay.
but I have been running the chlorine higher since we reopened than we did previously. If that makes anyone feel better.
And as I recall from some of our previous discussions, I think it was with regard to the Mirtha pool type construction, there are actually now filtration systems that use UV light to help sanitize the water. Is that
It'd be a sanitation system, yes.
right? Okay.
If I could ask Sheree while she's here, with our public comment talking about the use of the pool, were those accurate numbers that he was saying, less than 1%, only 50 people?
I don't know how to put a percentage
Okay.
to it, but I'm pretty sure we have more than 54 people daily.
I just wanted to,
Yeah, I'm not sure
Kinda
where,
check.
I don't have those numbers with me, and I don't know where he gets his numbers.
because of course numbers are limited now, because you have to make a reservation, you have to make a lane, you know, so I'm just trying to make sure that people know what the honest, reality of the situation is.
Right, yes, we have
We
to
want
have
people to
limited,
exercise and get fit and lose all that weight that they've been putting on.
limited capacity right now.
Thanks, Sheree.
Mr. Luttrell, with regard to the plastering work, there's a note on here that there had been some plastering work done, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, there was replastering. We had budgeted 40,000 for the main pool, but we used 6,200 out of the maintenance budget. But there still needs to be a large overhaul.
And just for a little more clarification on that particular item, because some people might hear we only spent 6,500 and yet it was budgeted for 40. The reason being is that we really did budget or do the CIP project to request the entire pool to be replastered. And then when the price actually came in, we did not have nearly enough money. So what we did was the portions of the pool, which were, the majority of them that were the worst were right by the steps when you first walk in. There were some of the corners that spill over into the surge trench. And then just in that front area that really, really needed attention because we knew we were losing a lot of water, and that was the culprit. So that was why we did at least that portion of it, to do as much as we could at the time.
Do you recall what the cost to replaster the entire pool was?
I do not off the top of my head.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Luttrell, I believe you have the next item as well.
I do. Just writing a note real quick. Item number 4, previously to the shutdown, we had discussed hiring a consultant to do a thorough analysis of the existing pool, including mechanical, electrical, structural, and we went to council and asked them, with your guys' recommendation, went to council and asked them if they were in favor of it to do an RFP. We did conduct the RFP. We received 8 total respondents. One of them was disqualified. I don't know if they read the job description, but they were advertising boards basically, and they had sanitary, like the hand sanitizer attached to them. So I don't know how that applied, but so we had 7 that were that responded, and we ranked all 7 and came up with 2 or 3 that would have been worth bringing in for interviews. But then again, the virus hit and that got put on hold. We haven't conducted the interviews, but we're looking for your guys' recommendation if we should proceed with that. I don't know if their quotes would still hold, but that would definitely be a question that we'd ask if we do conduct the interviews. The range of the quotes we're getting from the top 3 ranged from 21,000 to a little over 33,000 to conduct the analysis.
Any questions or comments? That, the request for proposal then, that was to have someone come in, do an evaluation of what the current condition is, what would it take to put the pool into good condition?
Correct.
Was it for anything else as far as recommendations? You know, I know we have issues with the locker rooms there. The bubble may or may not need some work. Anything other than that, or were they just going to look at the current conditions only?
It would have been facility-wide, but looking at the current conditions and then providing their estimate of what it would be to bring it up to usable standards.
And these firms, are they engineering firms, architecture firms, pool?
Mainly engineering and architectural, with there being structural, mechanical, electrical. They usually have to have licensed engineers for that. But a lot of the ones we were looking at was a combination of companies. There'd be a structural engineer teaming up with an architectural so they could do a full analysis of it.
All right, any other questions or comments?
So, to understand, like, usually people come in and they check out the situation, they give you their estimate, like basically bidding for the job. But normally you don't pay somebody to bid for their own job. Could these people come in and look over the situation and give us their proposal without having to pay all this money to them to do what they're going to charge us to do anyways?
I'm not
So
sure.
if you have a problem with your car, you take it in, they give you an estimate. You either pay them to do the work or you go somewhere else to get another estimate.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
So you're saying we're paying them to do something, which they should just be giving us an estimate, and they can or they don't have to say this is everything wrong here, but they can at least tell us how much it's going to cost to complete the repairs.
I understand that. What we were anticipating getting out of this was a very detailed analysis. Then if it comes back and say it's $15 million is what their estimate, we would go out and hire, and there's a couple different ways to do it, but easiest would be to hire an architectural / engineering company to do a full-blown design of the remodel. So it's not like we'd ask them to come in and do a free estimate and then they just automatically get the job. We're just asking them to do the analysis.
That's what I was wondering, why these companies aren't just coming in and looking at our situation and giving us the estimate, but also finding companies that can do the work. Once they say it is going to cost $15 million to repair, $28 million to do a whole brand new piece, but we're already paying them thousands of dollars just to tell us that. Have we looked for companies that can do the repair if they give us the estimate?
All these companies that we requested proposals from, none of them would be doing the actual remodel. That would be a contractor that would be doing that. So we could do something similar to we did to the Parkway, a construction manager at risk that would help us do the design, and then they would be able to build it. But the way it's set up right now, it wouldn't be the same company giving us the design as who would be building it.
Okay, because we've already spent money on this. I came in late, but I know that we've spent money on doing this earlier, so we're just repeating it instead of getting somebody that's going to come in, give us an estimate, we like it or don't like it, move on to the next one until we find someone that gives us value for our money. Okay. And can perform everything as we need it to be done.
Yeah, I think the money that was spent, though, was for the conceptual design, and that was rejected by the voters. So that was, and actually I don't even think there were engineering plans included in that. It was simply conceptual plans from an architectural firm. So I understand your point. Your point's well taken, but this money, what we're talking about is to have someone look at the conditions that are there now, whereas the money that was spent before was assuming that there was just going to be a new pool built.
Yeah, SH Architecture did provide, it wasn't detailed by any means, but they provided an estimate. I think it was a little more than, it was between 10 or 12 million to rebuild the pool. But like I said, that wasn't detailed. I don't think they went item by item, where that's where we're proposing, or we're hoping for in this proposal is they're going to go through everything and give us a real detailed analysis. So we'd have a more accurate estimate.
In the minutes that we approved today, number 3 was discussion and direction regarding retaining a consultant to tell us if it was even feasible. So they should be independent of people who may or may not be doing the work. Is that not the better thing to do?
Yeah, and that's where this company, whatever the top 3 that we would select, would do that analysis. And that's where, remember,
Right.
David was saying that if we find somebody to do both, that would be great. Sometimes that always doesn't work out the best. But yeah, if we had someone separate, that would give us probably a more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It would be a better response from them, more accurate.
Right. Well, that was a question that I had when I reread our last minutes, was
Yep.
did we do that? And it sounds like you
Yep.
were in the process of doing that, so.
Yep, we did it. We just didn't do the interviews to select whoever we'd like to move forward with, and that's why we're coming back to see if that's still something that you guys would recommend.
Right.
And then we'd still go back to council. If you guys gave us the recommendation, we'd go ask council if they're okay with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member McNay?
I guess because I'm a sheeple. You know, it bothers me that they want 21,000 to 33,000 just to do this. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we mainly wanted to like verify that the repairs would be so costly on this whole pool that it would be better off to, I thought, and to send that kind of money just to kind of verify that it's so expensive and maybe impossible. I keep thinking, how can you make the pool less shallow? I'm gonna dig, and there's, so I just wondered if there's anything in-house as public works guy. I mean, that's one of the comments, the public comment was, is there any team inside that can make some kind of without spending all this outside money that we could be used for other things?
There is parts that we would be able to do internally, but we wouldn't be able to do the full report. None of us are structural engineers. Mechanical and electrical. I'm sure we have some guys in our facilities maintenance that would give us a decent estimate, but to give you the full picture, we don't have the.
But I would think
staff.
even a reasonable estimate would be so much money that it would, again, be that verification that that money should be put towards the new facility rather than trying to repair this.
You know, I do understand that, you know, $20,000 to $30,000, it's not nothing, but the estimates and, you know, whatever we may come down on the side of where the estimates are, you know, the original project that was rejected by the voters was for $40 million. I believe in this, at least the financing part of it, we're looking at about $30 million. So $30,000 of $30 million is like 1/10 of the value. So what I'm getting at is when we look at projects that have costs like this, it's usually worthwhile to spend a little money to get professional evaluations on what's there now. Plus, you know, there are at least 2 ballot questions that are being proposed in this financing. And, you know, the ballot question was defeated last time. And the feedback that I received from voters was they didn't believe the cost. They felt that was way out of line. So I think the part of this is to make a determination of, you know, are we going to try and repair what's there? Is it worth doing that? And what's the value if we look for a replacement above whatever the repair cost is? Because at some point the voters are going to decide this, and if the ballot question just says, well, we'd really want a new pool, so go ahead and vote for this, it may have the same fate as the last ballot question had, which was to be defeated.
Yeah, and fully understand that and aware of that. I was opposed to the price tag, but I'm thinking this committee, I'm new to it, so I can't really speak, but I know you talked even before I got here about alternatives. I mean, original kinds of things, that metal, was it a metal pool that they were trying to get rid of when down with the Olympic thing? I would have loved to find out about that. Judy was telling me about it before I got on. And so I'm thinking, I'm hoping this can come up with maybe some unique alternative things, cost-effective ones too, that the voters will support.
Right, because obviously, as I say, the feedback I received from voters was going to them for a $40 million pool was just not acceptable.
Yeah, that's true.
And Chairman, just for the record, discussions from the February 11th City Council meeting when this topic of hiring a consultant to see about the repairability, for lack of a better word, of the facility and their professional opinion on what it would cost. One of the major topics of discussion was that they thought that it was, important, an important aspect of the process to really gain the voters' trust in the process, and that we have exhausted every avenue of this is what it's going to cost, and we could go this route and this is how much money it would be, or that a professional says, it's going to cost almost the same amount as building a brand new one. Whatever that is that this, the goal is to, in the end, have a pool worthy of our community, and if it takes having professionals come in to say this is the state of the current facility and how much it would cost, and that's going to be what voters understand and hold credence to, then that might be, a very important part of moving this forward.
Thank you, and I think the point's well taken that the pool's been taken for granted for a very long time because it's been there. It's, we've produced Olympic class swimmers, we've done all those kinds of things, but it's 40 years old. And at some point, you have to take a look at what can be done with a 40-year-old pool or whether something else needs to be done with it.
Yeah, also something to consider is how much time it takes to repair the pool. I think last time the SNH, I think it was around 12 million, but they said also it'd take about a year to repair it, so that's something else. It could build one probably in the same amount of time.
Right, we would be without a municipal pool for some period of time, up to a year, perhaps longer. All right, well, I believe that the outcome of this, this item is for possible action. My recommendation is that this committee once again recommend this be considered by council as to whether we want to move forward with this evaluation or not. Anyone have any other thoughts on whether we should go ahead with a recommendation or not go ahead with a recommendation to City Council?
I would propose that we go ahead with a recommendation per this discussion. It's going to prove or show people how much it's going to cost to do the repairs as opposed to a new pool. I mean, if it's going to only be twice as much for a brand new pool, that might help to convince people that we should put a new pool in. And so I would recommend that we do this.
Okay.
Would you be so kind as to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah,
Well, before we do that, let's see if we have any other questions or comments.
Well, I concur with that because without some basic knowledge to say yay or nay, we're just wasting time, I think. We need some concrete information. And we may all decide that the figure is reasonable. I mean, we don't know that, but I think that we do need that information, my opinion.
And just a couple other things to keep in mind, I believe, is, this committee, when it was created, is set to sunset or to go away in December. If ballot questions are to be considered, that will probably be done no later than January of next year if they're to be on the June ballot. So I guess what I'm saying is there's not a whole bunch of time. We're in September already. Certainly this committee can be extended if the city council believes that there's value in continuing this beyond December. It can be extended, but right now this committee is set to sunset or complete its function in December of this year.
So the company that we bring in to look at our pool, they will give us both the estimate for a repair and for a new pool. Just repair.
Just the repair.
Okay.
And I think if we look back at SH, and again, that, obviously that's getting older now, but they had given us a total of, I believe, 3 different price points, range of prices that they had proposed.
Mm-hmm.
So, as to what is happening with prices, I know at one point there was talk about there was some inflation factor of, 8.5% or something per year.
Yeah, we typically use anywhere from 5 to 10. And speaking with some of our neighboring communities, we decided to use 6% when we came up with that 40 million.
And again, we don't know what, because of the situation we're in, we don't know whether things are going down or going up or what it might hold.
I do know that we're getting lots of calls from consultants that are running out of work, but I don't know if I know I see lots of construction going on, but that's going to dry up sooner or later if the consultants aren't designing anything.
Well, and it was mentioned earlier, things like RTC funding. I'm on the RTC board. The funding's there right now because the bonds are playing out, the bonds that were sold previously. But depending on how this goes on, that money will run out, and that's when projects stop. So there is, the way government functions is our revenues can go out for a period of time, but then we start to see a significant drop off in what money's available. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'll make a motion that we go ahead with getting an estimate on repairing the pool.
All right, we have a motion and a second then to recommend this to City Council regarding retaining a consultant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Are you an aye or
Oh,
a
a
nay?
nay, whatever. Opposed.
Okay. Do you have the votes? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luttrell. All right, item number 5. This is an opportunity for the committee members to discuss what they may want to have on a future agenda. We won't be making any decisions regarding it, but we can certainly make recommendations of items that we want to see on future agendas. And I would keep in mind, as I said, right now the committee is set to sunset in December. We've lost 6 months of time due to the virus. So one of the things I would like to see on our next agenda is whether there would be a recommendation to City Council to extend this committee maybe to March or April of next year. If it turns out that there's not a need for the committee, the committee can then make a recommendation to disband and have that sent to council as well. Anyone have other thoughts on agenda items?
Is anybody coming up with what we want to go out for a proposal for a new pool that, that details what we're looking for exactly, beside the depth, and not an Olympic pool that's going to cost $40 million?
Mr. Luttrell?
I know at a previous meeting, we were proposing to put it on the agenda. I had done some miniature sizes of the proposed pool, and I don't know if we'd have to do it during a workshop or we do it during a meeting, but basically putting it out on the table, and each piece of the pool that was recommended is cut up, so we could try to position it, showing what we want, what we don't want, even in the location on the property where the pool is. So I don't know if that's something we want to do again. I have pretty much all of it ready sitting on my desk.
Well, we don't want to waste your efforts. No, again, I think that's an excellent idea. It's a question that's come up is, you know, whatever the decision is, if it were to be for something new, whether an entirely new complex or whatever, how does it fit where the park is right now? You know, the park gets used for various things. Certainly 4th of July is a big use of it. And, you know, I believe in the conceptual plan that had been prepared by SH, tennis courts were being eliminated, buildings were being torn down. You know, can we look at how something else might happen down there? So I believe that is an important function of the recommendation. So any other thoughts on having Mr. Luttrell bring this diorama for us?
Yeah, I think we should, I don't know if we should just put it on the agenda, just talk about design. I know we keep keep saying the same things, but maybe we should just have him bring his cutouts in.
Yeah.
For the next agenda.
All right.
I have a question for Mr. Luttrell. It's just how long do you think it might be before, if the council approves getting the estimate for, when do you think we might have that? If we weren't going to have it before the end of the year, then I would feel like maybe this committee would want to know what that was, but.
I could, at the earliest, take it to council on October 8th, and if I get their approval, we could try to schedule the interviews for as soon as possible after that. Knowing everybody's schedules, it might take a couple weeks to do that. Then my best guess would be on the short end, 30 to 60 days for them to do the analysis and put together a report, but it might take longer than that. Like I said earlier, a lot of the consultants are calling me looking for work, so I don't know if it's these companies or what. So if they're hungry, they can probably get it done a little quicker.
But it takes time
Yeah.
to do a good job, so that's just what I was thinking. It's going to be close to the end of the year, for
Yeah.
sure.
Probably, yep.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts that, you know, going back to what Member Stevens had said and also what Mr. Luttrell has said, you know, we have discussed quite a bit on this committee, if there were to be a proposal for a new pool, those requirements, and, you know, maybe we could have a refresher on what was discussed. Again, there was a specific size that was pretty well agreed upon as far as the recommendation goes. Pool depth, other, you know, whether it be a 4-lane pool, things like that had already been discussed by the committee. So if we could get that put back together in one place, because again, it has been over 6 months since our last meeting, so.
So what we can do is we can either have that information in the staff report or as a attachment and have it notated probably chronologically on what was mentioned the most times versus, you know, one time it was mentioned to have a tanning salon in there or whatever the case may be. I don't think that was mentioned.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but.
We won't add that.
Perhaps. All right, any other questions or comments?
Well, one of the things is we do need to move quickly, because if we wanted to get the ballot question on, you know, for the election in June, you have to have that in place a couple months before. You have to provide that.
Yeah, it's actually more than a couple months. It's
Yeah.
like 3 to 4 months.
Is it really? I mean,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a lot of time here.
No.
come up with it, you know, the design and the estimate for the repair and so the design would be important for next meeting.
Yes.
Again, as a point of reference, the February 11th meeting, the ad hoc pool committee went to city council with a couple of different requests. One was the approval of hiring a consultant, which we just agreed upon again. And the other one was a recommendation to city council to draft up ballot questions. Mr. Luttrell said that he's going October 8th for the consultant. Do we want to request the drafting of ballot questions at that time as well?
I would just say, you know, my view of it is the ballot questions have actually been worded. They're, you know,
Correct.
figures might be adjusted or whatever, but the ballot questions have been worded. When we start talking about drafting the ballot questions, you know, certainly a recommendation could be made to city council, but I'm not sure we're there yet. And that term, drafting the ballot questions, kind of triggers a process for the city clerk's office to engage in, to get things ready to go to the election department. So, you know, we certainly could put that on our next agenda and discuss it at that time.
So what I have for next meeting then is making sure that we come up with a list of all the amenities and or specs discussed by this committee and by the community as well for a new facility, and we will play with Legos as well for the new facility. And then as far as recommending to city council, that is going, you want that as an agenda item for us to discuss next month?
For the ballot questions, again, I think we're getting to a point in time that, you know, that recommendation has to be made within the next couple of months.
I was actually in reference to recommendation to city council regarding extending this committee, just in general.
Yes, and I think that, you know, that should be on our agenda as a recommendation because it will probably be the last or second to the last meeting of the way the committee is currently set up.
So, sorry for my confusion, but do you want staff to go to city council in the next?
Well, we can't make a decision because it's not been agendized by the committee.
Very good, got it. Thank you.
I just have some concern if we're talking to the public about it's going to be on the ballot, and economically the times are so uncertain, and until we have the answer, to me, if I'm not on the committee, but I'm listening to as a citizen, until we know how ridiculous it might be to repair the old pool, then I think it would be hard for us to move forward in the minds of our citizens.
And I don't disagree with you at all. I do think we should keep in mind, though, there is a possibility of a special election as well. And, you know, it may be possible for this committee to do its work, make its presentation to council, make its recommendations to council. So, you know, we can't avoid the 6 months that have been lost in this process. So I would just say we work as diligently as we can, and wherever point in time we get to where we believe we have something final to recommend, you know, we just keep working at that schedule that, and not worry about where the ballot questions may get decided.
And, you know, looking through the Diane's report, didn't the city council, said the city council meeting on 5/2/25/20 about the ballot questions, they defeated it. It was voted down. You remember that? And then I'm thinking the ballot questions, if I understand them right, they're not, it's towards a savings account. It's not making, isn't everything that Diane's letting out here with the mile markers and the thermometer, it's just saying we want to put some money aside because I think we want it, whatever we decide, repair or replace, they need money. And I thought those ballot questions are just saying we're going to put some money in a savings account.
Again, as we look back to the end of February, that was just when the virus was beginning. This thing that, it's a savings account, well, it is in a way, but it's taking money from like land sales, it's taking money from solar leases and dedicating them to specifically the purpose of the pool. And as a member of council, I do recall that the discussion at that time was, we have no idea, and we may have to take that money from the land sales and say, we're going to pay our police department or our firefighters because we don't know what is going to be in store for us as far as revenues go. So that money, it's once you decide it, or once we ask the voters to decide it, it gets dedicated to a source, and things are not clear as far as our revenues go. I know the projections have improved, but that doesn't mean we can't see something happen this fall where the economy just really goes off the rails.
And a lot of it's capital improvement. We have a stable capital improvement fund, and this is definitely capital improvement project.
Well, it is, but the land sales, by ballot initiatives in the past, that money gets dedicated to certain sources based on what's been decided in the past. But there are certainly opportunities for, like, the solar lease money. 60% of the solar lease money is at the discretion of city council as to how that money is spent. And what this would do would say, we're going to take a portion of that solar lease money and dedicate it to pool construction.
Okay, because there's a number of different ballot issues we're talking about here, and I don't know how many of them were defeated and which ones. I guess that's going to be on the agenda next time, right?
Yeah, none of them went forward.
Oh, I know they didn't go forward, but I'm looking at her report here.
Well, I just would comment that looking at the financial reports for the year ending June 30, 2020, that Mrs. Pelletier put forth to the council, this city is probably the most financially secure city in the county. And so I really do believe that we can proceed with her recommendations, and that we're not going to run into having to get to a point where we have to lay off people or not fund the police or whatever, because the finances of the city are very good.
We're fortunate we never became dependent on gaming tax the way that so many of the other municipalities are. So we haven't seen the significant drop-off that happened in other places. So, but money's still money. Okay, any other items then for the agenda? Mrs. Callaway, would you recap again for us?
Yes, we will be discussing the possibility of going to City Council to recommend extending the lifespan of this committee. And we will be discussing the list of recommendations for a new aquatic facility based on past meetings and community input. And that's with the help of Public Works Director. And we will be also discussing future ballot questions on the potential of moving forward with those. And in the past, we have had future agenda items on every agenda. So if the members would like that, we will also have that agenda item for future agenda items for future meetings.
Yeah, and I think we just keep that on as a recurring agenda item that we always have that opportunity to discuss. Any other suggestions then for our next meeting?
I was wondering if we can get out a request for donations for a new pool. Like, if anyone's, I mean, I think that's so wonderful that we got, what, $1.3 million anonymous
Absolutely.
donation for a pool. So is there ways to go out about trying to get people know that there's something?
Form a nonprofit and go to work.
Oh, okay.
All right, then, we will move to our last public comment period. Anyone wishing to make public comment during this period, it can be on any issue. The phone number is 702-589-9629. Again, the phone number for public comment is 702-589-9629.
Public comment, please state your name for the record.
Yes, I have public comment. My name is Fred Bolts, for the record, and I would like to suggest the following final comments. The number of daily pool users came from the year-end 2019 statistics generated by the Parks and Recreation Department and made public, divided by the number of days the pool was actually open in calendar year 2019. So again, spending tens of millions of dollars we don't have in hand to build a new pool or to perform a major renovation or to continue to spend large maintenance dollars to keep the existing pool functioning all seem imprudent given the less than 1% Boulderites who actually use the pool. To the city's financial health, with the state budget dependent upon tourism and gambling, Boulder City needs to be concerned that any funds coming from that source may be cut in the future. And I would ask that these comments be added verbatim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The phone line is available, 702-589-9629 for our final public comment period. This is the final public comment period for the Ad hoc Pool Committee. The phone number is 702-589-9629 if you wish to make public comment. All right, hearing no others, we will close the public comment period. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for participating today.
Terry, do we have your correct email? Yes. Okay. No, you're fine. You're good. No problem. Thank you.